Hi, I'm Rochelle from Originally Worn, and today we're going to work on creating an old barnwood look out of brand new wood. This will be great for new build tabletops or new build tables, perfect for beams in your ceiling or paneling on your walls, anything that you're going to build out of new wood but you want it to look old. It was a viewer suggestion from Matt of Next Level Carpentry. He has a fabulous YouTube channel, and I will put the link in the description below. To start this process, I'm gonna have a piece of red oak here. I have taken some nails there and kind of a chisel and made some distressing marks, and I've lightly sanded the edges here. If you have a little bit more time, or if this is for, you know, something your dining room table, something like that. I just did this quick. You could literally, you know, chisel out some grooves or sand deeper spots like that, really to make it worn. That'll give you the best. And then anything like this pinhole, the stain is gonna sit in there, and that's gonna create kind of a cool old distressed look. So you start with a brand new piece of wood and you beat it up a little bit. And now we're going to do this in two different sides so you can see what it would look like with a layer of chippy paint underneath, which I'm just gonna do one layer of Annie Sloan Old White, but you could layer these on top of each other, and then this side we're gonna leave bare at this moment, so this would be like more of a gray barnwood. So I'm just gonna quick slap on a goobery layer of kind of old white there. Doesn't need to cover perfect, doesn't need to cover any of it or all of it. We're gonna take a sander to it in a minute, but there's kind of our starting point. I'm gonna let this dry now. So you can see that my white paint dried, and then I took a electric sander and hit it and sanded it with the grain. I think I used a 120 grit on there. You see where I kind of gouged holes and stuff like that? The paint has gathered in, which is cool. Of course, you could do this technique with, you could throw a gray on there now, and a black on there now, and a green or like a teal color, and just keep layering and layering and layering. But for our purposes today, we're just gonna go this far with the painted underneath version. And now we're going to make a wash of Annie Sloan French linen. Now I have a video on specifically on how to make a wash, and I will link it above for you. Basically though, I've made up this light mixture here of Annie Sloan French linen and water, and that will kind of stain the wood a dark gray. Now you can do this in any sorts of gray, or I mean any color this works for. But if we're going for barnwood, I always think of barnwood as gray. So the longer you let that wash sit in there, of course the more it's gonna soak into the grain and kind of change the color of that. But you can also take a rag and kind of wash and move it around too. I always try to wipe with the grain when you're working with wood, just because that's how that would land. And don't be afraid then to take some other paint, like this is just solid French linen, and kind of go with it in a couple places. And depending on your wood, it's gonna give it a different look. I mean, literally, you can just keep doing this over and over with so many layers, and it'll give so many different looks. Since this wood has a bit more of a red tone to it, I'm actually gonna take a color called Versailles in the Annie Sloan line, which is like a light green, and kind of put that on there. I know, don't be scared. That might help kind of tone the red. Now you wouldn't have had to do it this thick. I just had that much on my brush. And you can kind of wipe that back. For me, all these kind of techniques are a lot of back and forth of saying, you know, let's put this color next, let's move on, let's do this, let's wipe here. It's more of a feel as you're going than necessarily, because every wood is different. So now we've dulled our red down a little bit. We'll go back with some more gray. I haven't even changed brushes yet. There, we got it more the tone that I wanted. Sometimes Barnwood even has a blue hue to it, so you can put some blue. This is gonna be Annie Sloan Old Violet. So this is Annie Sloan Old Violet, and I'm just grabbing a flat brush this time, just because that's what I had, and kind of adding it to this. You can see how I'm flinging even some dust around. You know, when you're doing these washes and stuff, you don't really have to wait in between all the layers. You certainly can. And a spray bottle of water and a rag is your best friend. Next, I'm gonna take some Annie Sloan Graphite, and this time I'm gonna show you how to put it on with a blue shop towel. You can do it or a rag. You can use any of these tools or methods for any colors over and over of layers. The more layers you have, kind of, the better it'll look. So you can see with the rag, you get kind of like a rubbed in look. And you can place it, you know, where you want it. You know, Barnwood has all these variations of color. And you can leave it thicker or thinner. You just really, in the end, don't want it to look like you've always painted it. You want it to kind of look like it's aged over the years. Another great thing to do with this is you can mix kind of black and brown stains and gray stains. I like General Finishes and I like Unicorn Spit for stains. You can see we're starting to get there. Now for fun, and just for texture and color, I'm gonna take some black and kind of streak it in some bigger spots. Like that. And probably do here on this side too. And let those dry. Now I know that looks pretty scary right now. I'm gonna let that dry and then sand it. And you know what? I might as well throw a little bit of the Old Violet in that same manner. Again, if you're doing this, you know, you might as well do a little test on a piece of wood first. See what you like. Find a combo that you like. I just like to play with paint and make crazy things. So I'm gonna let that dry, and then I'm gonna hit it again with the 120 electric sander. So I've done all the painting I'm gonna do on this. And see, this is the side that we painted white first, and this is the side that we left natural. Of course, this looks like it's been painted at one time. This looks a little bit more like stained. But where this is really gonna turn out good is when you use the Annie Sloan waxes. Now in Annie Sloan Wax World, there are 4 choices. The colors in her world are dark wax, which is brown, clear wax, just clear, white wax, and black wax. Now you can take any Annie Sloan paint color and mix it with the clear wax too if you want to make a colored wax. Say you would like a gray wax in this instance. I have a video on how to do that I will link to the above. But I'm actually going to do a lot of this with the black wax and maybe a little bit of white wax in there and kind of mix them. Now typically you'll always want to put a layer of clear wax first because that would be your protectant so you don't stain your color. So if you don't want to change this color, you love what you've done paint-wise, then put a layer of clear wax first and use your colored waxes for more of a paint decorative situation. But this is still a little bit too yellow for me, and I want to overall stain it with like a gray-black tone. So this gets kind of messy. This stuff's like shoe polish. And you can take a wax brush or just one of these blue shop towels again, or even a piece of steel wool. And I'm gonna use a piece of steel wool kind of for fun and get some black wax. And you can work it in this paint there. And you can see how it's bringing out your brown tone again. So you would use brown wax if you really wanted more of a, brown old beam. Of course, we're going for more of the, sorry, I keep hitting that. More of a blue one. And let it gather and sit in all those good crevices. Try to get it in that little wormhole there. You can really kind of mush it in if you want, work it in. This steel wool does a really good job of kind of sanding a little bit as you go. I use fine steel wool. And depending on what this is going to be used for, if this is going to be used for a tabletop, I would really like buff this smooth and not leave a lot of excess wax on the surface, and make sure you let it cure. If it's going to be used on a decorative wall or a picture frame or something, I wouldn't worry about it so much. I would get it to the look you like and then just walk away. So you can see how we're starting to get there. The waxes make a lot of difference. So we're starting, I'm still liking this side the best. So if you wanted to, you certainly could add other waxes in the mix here. I'm gonna go ahead and grab some white wax just for tutorial purposes. So I got a little bit of white wax on there and kind of make more of a gray mush and smear along some of this. You can kind of see now where you get almost the grayer tone there. And again, you can leave this on pretty thick if it's not something that you're going to be eating off of. The reason being is that it would take a really long time for it to cure really thick enough to scrub with your dishes and stuff like that from cooking. Whereas if you're, like I said, decorative, you don't really need to scrub it off. It doesn't really matter. And I will do a video at a later date showing how you actually can do this if it is a tabletop. You can also do this with not waxes, but you can use general finishes. top coat products over top of the Annie Sloan paint, and then use their glazes like I'm using these colored waxes. And see, you can even pull them sometimes. Now this wood had a lot of grain to it, but sometimes woods don't. You see how I could pull that black wax to make my own grain? Also, let's say you want to do this with your paint. This is a graining tool. I bought it off of Amazon. I will see if I can find something similar and put it in a link below. And that way you can kind of create some of this, you know, grain that you see in here. I like to do it with the wax, specifically on that one. So you kind of let it sit and drag and drop. And like I said before, if you're doing a big piece, I would get your technique down first of what works with that wood before I would go ahead and, you know, do a whole thing. But I mean, this is the first time I've done this. I just like to play kind of on the fly. So whatever works for you. So I might, it looks a little different in person than it does on that video there. I might try to kind of blend those out a little bit more over here. Basically what you're wanting is layers of blacks and blues and gray. The longer you let this wax sit but it's still wet, the more you can kind of drag it too. And there is brown wax. If your wood isn't have like those brown tones like that one does, you know, you certainly throw some brown in there too, because you want to have a little bit of brown in brown barnwood. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you have suggestions on the next tutorial, just email info@originallywornonline.com or send us a Facebook message. Otherwise, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notifications icon. And check us out on Facebook under Originally Worn or online at originallywornonline.com. Happy painting!